It is possible to become free from debt, financial worry, your boss, and your zip code. You can start living a life you love, but first, you need to find your freedom. Using financial independence and lifestyle design principles, you can create the life of your dreams now. There are many paths to freedom, and that is what this podcast is all about. My name is Becky from 20free.co, and I am the host of the Find Your Freedom podcast. Every other episode, I interview women who have gone on a personal quest for freedom. Please note that there is a small amount of strong language used in this episode. Today, I'm interviewing Shelby, founder and CEO of Pillars Realty. She is an Army veteran in her 20s who owns 40 units after investing in real estate for just 2 years. She has also built a real estate business that currently employs 12 people after less than 1 year of business. Through real estate, Shelby has developed a cash flow that led to financial independence at the age of 28. In this interview, I am so excited to talk to Shelby about real estate investing, business ownership, and financial independence. Welcome to Find Your Freedom, Shelby.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have you. So let's start with talking about your background. Tell me a little bit about how your personal experiences have shaped your personality and your perspectives on money and life.
For sure. So my parents had a big part on, who I am today in regards to money and business and all of that. And it started, so my dad was in the military for 24 years and I grew up in this relatively strict household where from a very young age, we had to do like chores, and any money that we got, my dad had these my mom too, if she ever listens to this, but had these 3 little buckets where we could put our money. So one was quick cash, one was long-term, and then a charity. So literally they had little tubs, in our room where we would put our money. So it was kind of cool that our parents had us think about where our money was going and, don't just blow it, because there might be something that in the long term you want to save up for. My dad has bought a couple investment properties, never hardcore into real estate like I am, but he's dabbled. So
yeah. Okay. So your dad has a military background, and we'll get to that in a minute. And so your parents, when you had your own money, when you were younger, they encouraged you to kind of have goals for it, right? And to put it towards different things that you wanted. And so it sounds like you had a pretty good personal finance education since you were young, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that if you want money, you go out and you work for it, and then you earn that money. And from there is you decide where you want to funnel it. It makes you appreciate it more.
Did you get a job when you were younger, when you were a teenager?
I did. Yeah. So I coached gymnastics. I was a competitive gymnast for years, so it was a natural fit for that. And then when I stopped doing gymnastics, I also worked at Moe's and Panera. So I've had some odd jobs.
So let's go back to your early financial life, when you started working, when you started making money. Tell me a little bit about that. Where did you start financially? Did you make any major financial mistakes? What did that look like?
I didn't really start making real money until I graduated college. But the money that I made in my odd jobs, I just put towards a lot of it towards savings, a lot of it into mutual funds. So my parents had us set up accounts when we were younger with that as well, our mutual funds. And every time we went to the dentist and we didn't have a cavity, they would put $50 towards in our mutual funds.
That's awesome. I love that.
So, yeah, I actually forgot about that until right this second. But I guess my first real purchase was a car when I was in college. And when I was in college, I was in ROTC. So that's basically that trains you up to be a military officer when you graduate. So with that, they gave us a stipend. We got $300 a month for being in ROTC, and I would use that money to cover my car payment. So my first real purchase was the car, and then down the road, I was a property.
Well, I'm glad that you shared that you actually had investments when you were a teenager, or maybe even younger. I mean, I don't know at what age your parents started giving you money from the dentist, but I mean, not many people have a mutual fund, to their name before they're probably well into their 20s.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. It was like a child when my parents set me up accounts.
Yeah,
So.
that's great. That's really awesome. And so you were in ROTC in college. And at that point, did you know that you wanted to have a career in the military?
So I did not actually want a career in the military, and I did not care about real estate at all. I had no idea what I wanted, but I knew that I wanted someone to pay for my college. I wanted to go out of state, and my parents would pay for me in state, but if I wanted to go out, I had to cover the difference. And that's a lot of money. So I was like, hey, who wants to pay for my college? And of course, with a little pushing from my dad being 24 years in the service, I ended up in ROTC. But it was never like, I want to be in the Army, I want to be anything. But it actually worked out wonderfully. I can't imagine having a better start to like adulthood than being in the military. Truly, I'm so appreciative of my years spent there. So
how long were you in the military for? You were in the Army, correct?
mm-hmm. Yes. So I was in the Army. I first got in when I was 21 because I graduated college when I was 21, about to be 22. And so in the Army from 21 until 27. So it was 6 years that I was in the service.
And so did you graduate college with any student loans, or was that all covered by the military?
I graduated debt-free. So.
That's awesome. You became an Army captain, correct?
Yeah, before I left. When I first commissioned, I was a second lieutenant and then was promoted to a first lieutenant and then a captain by the time I got out.
So besides the student loans part of it, the Army helped you get through college without debt. What are the other things that might be different about finances in the military? Are there unique benefits?
Yes. So some of the benefits that I absolutely love, my first and foremost is the VA loan. So I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a 0% down loan that is offered to military and a few other people that are connected to the military. And there's just nothing better. You can buy a house for nothing out of pocket except for, inspections and closing costs. And if you play your cards right, you can even have the seller cover those costs for you. There's so many intricacies, and it's like one of my favorite things in the world. So if anyone out there wants to use their VA loan or like the inside scoop, I got you. You can also use it more than once, which a lot of people think that you can just use it once and then you're done. But I actually have 2 active right now. That's how one is a condo that I bought when I was 22 years old, before I knew that real estate was like everything. And then the second I bought when I was getting out of the military, I bought a quadplex, because with the VA loan, you can buy up to 4 units with one loan, all 0% down. Amazing.
0% down. And what's the interest on the loan, if you don't mind me asking? Are they better interest rates than typical loans?
It depends on your credit, is how good of rate you're going to have, but very comparable to like the best that you can get. It's a primary residence loan too, so those are going to be more favorable than an investment property loan or a business loan. Right. So it's real low.
Yeah. You said you got your first investment property when you were 22 years old, right?
It wasn't an investment though. So that's the reason why, like, in my head, I started, because my first intentional investment property was when I was 27. But when I was 22, I just had this VA loan. My dad was, again, a big proponent of this decision, was like, why would you pay someone else's mortgage when you could pay your own? And I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's smart. So I just bought like the thing that I was living in. I didn't think of it as an investment property. I was just like, hey, I can do this with 0% down. Why not?
Then at that point, you were still not necessarily in the real estate as a way to make money mindset, right?
Exactly. It didn't really click until I moved. So my first place where I purchased was in Washington State, because that's where the Army sent me as my first duty station. Mm-hmm. And I was there for like 3.5 years. But when I moved, I was like, I don't want to sell this thing, because holy crap, first of all, Washington market is insane. And I bought it, when I was 22. By the time I left 3.5 years later, it appreciated. I bought it for $158, and right now it's worth about $230, which is insane. Wow. Like, yeah. So my eyes open to that. And then also the tenant pays $1,575 and my mortgage payment is $9 something. There's a disgusting HOA. That's a whole nother story, but it's still cash flowing. And I did not run numbers prior. Like, I had no idea about investing in real estate, and I just had this check coming in every month. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. Let's do more of that.
So did you decide not to sell it because you saw how much it had appreciated? And then at that point you decided maybe it would be good to keep it as a rental property to sell later once, you thought that it had hit a certain number? What was your thought process there?
Well, I'm kind of the mindset, and again, my dad, damn, he should get an award. He's like, the only piece of real estate that I've like ever regretted is when I sell it. Like basically his whole point was never sell, just hold it forever, because as long as you have someone paying down your mortgage, eventually it's going to be paid off, and then the property just continues to appreciate. So
you're a buy and hold investor, right?
100% buy and hold. I've yet to sell anything. I may sell that property in Washington just because right now it cash flows well, but if I took that same money and I rolled it into properties in Fayetteville, I could get several doors instead of just one and make a lot more. So it's not off the table.
That's so interesting to me that what ended up being your first investment, you may not have necessarily seen it as your first investment, was your primary residence.
Right.
And you ended up moving away out of the state of Washington, right? And you weren't able to live there anymore. So you just transitioned into being technically a real estate investor, right?
Exactly. And that's honestly, anyone can do that. Primary residence loans are awesome. And normally you're just supposed to live in the property for a year, and then you move and you can get another primary residence loan, which even if you don't have the VA, there's the FHA loan, which is 3.5% down, which is still very doable. Well, depending on your market. But like, I highly recommend to anyone to house hack. House hack is you live in either a part of a single family or you live in one unit of a multifamily and then rent out the rest. And those that income covers your mortgage payment, which is generally people's largest expense.
So did you house hack your second VA loan property, which had 4 units?
I intended to, and my plans changed. So it just turned out, and that's one of the things with the VA loan is you have to intend to live in the property. If your plans change, because a lot of military get deployed or they get orders to PCS, and it's not really their fault if they just bought this property and now the Army's saying, hey, you got to go. So as long as you intend to, then you're not breaking any rules.
Was that your second purchase?
That was my third purchase.
That goes from 1 door to 4 doors pretty quick. What was in between those 2 purchases?
A duplex, which was my first intentional, and I freaking love that property. I actually just posted about it today. So after that, I went away from conventional purchases just because you have to, in this case, I put 25% down, and hot damn, that's a lot of money, even though my property was $75,000. So in perspective. But yeah, so I bought a duplex for $75,000, put 25% down, got some concessions from the seller to help cover closing costs, did some repairs, very minimal. And it rents for $625 each side. So that's $1,250 a month that it brings in. And my mortgage payment is $424.
Wow.
So it's, yeah. And I pay 7% for my property manager. Normally they're 10, but because I have 40 units now, and like my partners, we all send them business. So like I get 7%, my partners get 7% as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I cash flow $738 a month on that property.
Wow. And that's on your first investment property.
Right. And by cash flow, I mean, I took every single penny of my properties and all of the cash flow and put it into the reserves until I meet my reserves. And then after that, I can cash flow. But in the beginning, like usually I just put it into, all the money goes into an account. I don't even look at it. Like, I don't want to spend, you know what I mean?
Right. So tell me about your reserves. Is that for any maintenance that's needed for the property, any issues for move in, move out, if you have a vacancy for a certain amount of time?
Exactly.
What are you planning for? And typically what size would that reserve be for a property?
Right. So my rule of thumb for planning purposes for reserves, it's going to include capital expenditures, maintenance, and then vacancies. And so my CapEx is 10%, my maintenance is 5%, and vacancies is 5%. In this account where I keep, there's a couple of properties that use this account. There's 15 grand in it for reserves. And usually what in my head, it's 5,000 per property because it's not per unit. It's per property, because I'm a big proponent of multifamily units because I want to make one purchase and have multiple streams from one roof. So when I think of capital expenditures like the roof going out or an HVAC or whatever, some people may want more than 5 per, but I think that for the most part, if they wiped out 5, like I would just start building it up again. 15 is fine.
Right.
For me. Granted, it depends on your levels of risk, like what you feel comfortable with.
Right. But you do get a benefit from having a multi-unit property where literally there is only one roof. If your roof
Exactly.
needs to be replaced, you're replacing one roof, which would cost as much for a 4-unit property as it would for a single family home, right?
Right. Right.
Are most of your properties multi-unit?
Most of them are. I own 2 singles, and other than that, they're all multis. One of the singles was that first purchase before I was thinking real estate.
So when you really started thinking real estate, how old were you, and how old were you when you made that first property purchase?
I was 26 when I first got bit by the bug, and it happened from I was in the military and very frustrated with the military. There's a lot of inefficiencies. There's a lot of we've always done it this way, and there's no appreciation for creative thought and changing things up. So I was getting a little frustrated, and I got hit up by this multi-level marketing couple. Do you know like the MLM pyramid schemes?
Yeah.
So they hit me up, but they gave me this book. I didn't go with them, but I got the book by Robert Kiyosaki, not Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is what most people think. It was The Business of the 21st Century.
Okay.
And in that book, they touch on it's the cash flow quadrant of whether you're employee, self-employed, business owner, or investor, and where you fall on that scheme. And it really hit home with me that I was an employee and I wanted to be on the other end, which is the investor, where your money is working for you. You're not working for your money.
Right.
And so from that, I literally just kind of went balls to the wall and into real estate. So I decided to get my license. I told the Army, hey, I'm getting out, which for them, you have to give them notice. So it wasn't officially until April 1st of 2018 that I was out of the military. But I started, you can go on like transition leave where you don't have to go and work anymore in the end of January. But anyway, so at that point in the spring, I signed up for real estate. This was spring of 2017. I signed up for real estate class, ended up getting my license and my first intentional investment property within like a week of each other in November of 2017, and didn't really do any I didn't like work with any clients, didn't even really tell people I was in real estate until I actually got out of the military in that January timeframe when I went on that leave. And from there, I went crazy my first year in 2018 at Keller Williams. And I was the Rookie of the Year for the Carolina region. So that was all of North and South Carolina, my first year.
That's amazing. I can imagine that was like a really big undertaking for you to get Rookie of the Year. What does that involve in terms of you were selling a lot of properties or you were processing a lot of real estate transactions?
My business I have 2 businesses really. I have my business where I help people buy, sell, and invest. And then I have my investment business where I personally purchase properties. So for the Keller Williams Rookie of the Year, it's on my helping other people buy, sell, and invest side. And the reason why I won that is because of the most transactions in volume that I did for other people that first year. So, but freaking ton of work, man.
I bet. So at the same time as you were helping other people with their buying, selling, and investing in properties, you were continuing to invest in additional properties for yourself?
Yes.
At that point, how many properties were you at?
By the end of my first year in real estate, I had 16 units because I had the one in Washington and I bought 2 in November of 2017. So I had 3. And then that 2018, I got 13 more.
So you scaled up pretty quickly. And now we're going to get into this past year, right?
Yes.
Where you started 5 Pillars.
Within the firm, I have 5 Pillars Realty Group and my team within it.
And that team is 12 people strong now, right? Including
Yes.
your admins and your agents.
Yes. I'm in charge of the vision and all things related to our actual company. It is its own company, and in charge of training and mentorship and recruiting and making sure our systems are in line. I'm really big on like systems and everything. You only figure something out once because then you document it and you never make the same mistake twice. Big on checklists, all of that stuff. So that's kind of my role. And even to the point where I stopped working with clients for a little while there because every lead that came in, I just gave it to my agents. Recently, I've decided that I want to start working with clients again because I kind of miss it. So as of literally like 4 days ago, I'm now a broker again.
So Five Pillars started January 1st, 2019, right? So that was 11 or so months ago. So you're almost at your first year. You've grown your team significantly, right? You have 12 people now. At the same time, you're investing in additional properties. So what unit count are you up to now?
I'm up to 40 right now. And a lot of these are partnerships as well. So that's one of the things that you have to decide in real estate investing. Eventually, you're going to run out of your own capital, your own resources. The bank is going to say, hey, you have too many loans, like no more loans for you, which is a real thing. But then you have to be creative, because obviously we're not going to stop in this journey towards our financial independence. So you got to figure out how to make it work, which is, I've done a lot of private money instead of banks. And then I've worked with several partnerships now. So I have 3 different groups of people that I've invested with so far. So like with an LLC, and then also I'm in the process of creating another one with just one partner. So there's 3 of us in the first one, 4 in the second, 3 in the third, and then 2 of us in this most recent, besides the properties that I own 100%.
Now you're using other people's either capital or ability to leverage, right? So let's talk about leverage a little bit. You mentioned you love leverage. Why do you love leverage? What is it? What does it do for you?
Leverage is everything. So a lot of people, when they're starting a business or getting into whatever their niche may be, feels the need to do things themselves. Like everything that you do, I have to do it myself if I want it done the right way. Whereas like, I'm like completely the opposite. I'm like in my head, someone can probably do this better than me. So really, even it's my instinct as like I receive, tasks or think of things that I need to do for the business. My instinct isn't when I should do it. It's who is best suited to do this. And just training yourself to be able to leverage your time and oversee the process and kind of like balance between air game and ground game. So like ground game being like in your business and knocking out tasks and all that stuff, and air game being able to like kind of rise above it and see strategically like who needs to move to what, who would be best suited where. It just makes everything go so much better, so much faster. It's leverage is life.
So you leverage your time, right? And you leverage other people to help you achieve your goals. Because it sounds like what your role is you're working on the business and what the overall vision is for it. And then you have people who are helping you work in the business, and they're providing the implementation of the vision that you have.
Exactly.
Right? So you can also leverage money. So that's typically when you get into loans and other people's capital, right? People have completely different ideas of how much you should be leveraged, if there's such a thing as too much leverage to have. What's your feeling on that?
So I'm all about leveraging to the max as long as it's calculated, because in my mind, there's no risk if you run your numbers beforehand and you understand that purchasing a property, rent will bring this much, expenses are this much, plan for a buffer, like calculated leverage. So I'm all about doing it again and again and again, even if it's using other people's money. It is kind of freaky if you think about it and you're like, holy crap, like, I owe X amount, which is a lot of money. But if it's calculated and like I understand this market, I know what rents are going to bring in, like I work my team, the leverage, the property manager, the contractor, the attorney, the insurance provider, like all of those people play their part. And I don't find that it's actually very risky.
It seems like your comfort level, even with the financial part of leverage, is very high. You would continue to get more leverage. You don't feel the need to necessarily say pay off your mortgages to a certain extent or
Not
completely in order to reduce your debt load or anything like that. You're ready to go. The more leverage you can get, the better. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Well, tell me about Five Pillars. Like, who or what are the pillars? I've always wondered this since I heard about your business.
Funny. Okay, so the pillars, it's Five Pillars encapsulates what we stand for. So NCAP is the acronym. So we're filled with military people. Everything's an acronym, but it's the E is education, then network, creativity, action, and then the plan to make it all happen. I do really believe in all of those things. But Five Pillars was really just, a lot of them are my clients, actually, were my clients who are like, hey, what you're doing looks fun. But we are all investor mindset and veteran led. our organization. So myself and all of the people in Five Pillars currently even have either been in the military or affiliated somehow to the military. And I think that really sets our mindset, motivation level, like how we communicate with each other. It's like very seamless. And then working around Fort Bragg, which is the largest military installation in the world, we get to work with people every day who are literally we were in the same position. We have access all to the VA loan, understand each other. So that's what Five Pillars is. We're investor mindset, veteran led, helping other people reach their financial goals.
Yeah, that seems like you've really found your niche. And let's talk about your vision. So clearly you had a goal and you wanted to scale, and you've scaled your business incredibly quickly. Did you start with a clear idea of what you wanted, A, your real estate portfolio personally to look like, and B, what you wanted Five Pillars to look like?
No. And I know that's probably not the right answer.
No, that's whatever the answer is the right answer. It's how many of us actually know what we're doing when we start something? Right. Right. So it's good to hear that you didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't have a 58-page business plan that said you were going to hire this many people and do whatever.
No. So with the investments, I just have been working really aggressively towards what in my mind I want my passive income per month to be. And I'm still like not even close to that. But of course, reaching that stage where your income from investments covers your life expenses is the step one. And then, which I have luckily gotten there, but I just have so far to go in regards to how much I actually do want, because there's a lot of stuff that money is not everything, but like you can do a lot of cool stuff with money. And I want to be able to like help my brother buy investment properties. And my mom is a teacher and she like is still working. I want to be able to help her work towards her bolstering her retirement and all. I mean, I want money to help the people in my life that I care about. So in regards to a clear vision, I have a number, and I'm just chipping away towards that number. And then in regards to Five Pillars as business, it really just started out of pure necessity, because of my first year, I was an individual agent and I was doing everything myself, which, as you know, I'm a big fan of leverage, so that wasn't going to cut it. And I found that my quality of service was lessening because I physically did not have enough time in the day to service all the clients. So I had to scale so that way agents could take the clients that I couldn't service essentially and hire on the admin team to 80-20 principle. Are you familiar with the 80-20 principle?
I am, but could you just go over it?
Yes, 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So it's really important that you focus all of your energy on the 20% that will bring those results. And if you're doing things that are in your 80%, the stuff that doesn't really matter, then it's essentially a waste of time. And so my admin are so wonderful because they let me focus on my 20% and they do all the 80%. And they're so, so good at it. And I'm so grateful for them. But yeah, so no freaking vision. It was out of necessity. And then we just kind of attract like-minded people with the same energy and motivation levels. And that has turned out to be appealing to people. So more people want to be a part of it, which is really cool.
It sounds like you did have a driving force behind you, and that was the idea of you had this number that you wanted to achieve. And it sounds like you also had stages in mind, and you've reached that first stage of, you know, what I would consider financial independence. But if you're able to cover your expenses with your cash flow from your investment properties, then you are financially independent.
And being able to let go, that's one of the biggest issues I see, again, with the people, I'm going to do it my way, or I need to micromanage. I am like all about ownership, man. Like, this is your world. I want you to be creative. I want you to find the best way to change things. Like, just because I did it this way when I was an individual agent and I'm passing along that system to you, my expectation is for you to break that system. Like, literally tear it up, break it down, build it up, make it better, and just being able to like empower the people in Five Pillars in my world. I think that it's just so beautiful watching them like be cautious at first and then really take on their role and like own it. And I think that that's the reason why we've grown so quickly, is because everyone buys in and they just feel this sense of like I'm a part of this and it's also mine, and I want to make it the best thing that it can be.
And there's a lot of trust there. It seems like you have a ton of trust in your team that you're able to hand things off and have it be completely hands off.
Yeah.
Take the ownership of this, manage it the way that you would manage it, insert your own creativity into the process that we already have that exists, and iterate it and improve it, right? I think that plays right into leveraging people, because the philosophy that you might not be the best person to do everything seems like has really helped you find people who are the best people to do those things. And you're able to then everyone can spend their own time in their, area of best contribution to either, the business or whatever you guys are trying to get done.
And it hasn't always been easy. Like, saying it now, it seems easy, but it took a lot of time. And I've spent a lot of time with people, going over, for military terms, sustains, improves, what I see, you're doing great at, what I see we could improve on, and just holding people accountable as well. And they grow into that position, into that ability, but it's not always instant.
Yeah, and accountability is huge too. You're having people take responsibility for what their role is, right? And asking them to make sure that they're working up to a standard that you've set for the company.
Yes. And then with that too, not letting things slide that are unacceptable, because what I found is the moment that you are like, whatever, I'll let that slide, it's not that person. It's the amazing other people who are on your team who are watching you accept a substandard performance. And then to them, it's like, why do I want to be a part of something that, our standards aren't as high as I thought they were? You know what I mean? So now it's like, I am more, a little more strict on certain things, just because I refuse to let down the rest of my team.
You're a role model for them, right? You're holding up a standard that you've set, and you want to be modeling that and expecting other people to live up to that standard as well. I wanted to ask how you learned about running a business. Do you have any background or education in business, or did you learn the ropes as you went along?
A lot of it is as I go. I'm a fail forward type of person, and also like a take action. So I'll think through a decision, but I don't overthink on pretty much anything. I'm just going to like, hey, we're going to go. And if it's the wrong course, that's okay. We'll adjust on the fly as needed. So a lot of it was learning on the way, but a lot of it came from my time in the military, because when I was in the military for 6 years as a brand new 21, 22-year-old, I was plopped into this position where I was responsible for people who have been in the military for years. And holy crap, that's one way to teach you how to grow quickly, and being able to have responsibility for those people. And every person in my shop, I was in human resources, but like, we had the awards clerk and we had our leaves clerk and finances and in different areas. So it helps you learn to leverage and then oversee, because instead of me digging into awards, it taught me to go to that person and say, hey, what's going on in your lane? So just having that and being able to keep up with the military, where expectations are super high, and if you screw up, you kind of get like shit on. All of that was perfect training for leading my business in a civilian world, where if you screw up, people don't shit on you, but we still act like it. It's all so military.
It's probably helpful that you work with people who have a military background as well, because you're on the same level of understanding about those things, right? They expect high standards. They understand they have to meet those standards. They don't expect you to wear your kid gloves or handhold anybody through anything.
And there's this sense of urgency that comes from working in the military, because when you're given like an assignment, it's like, oh my God, I have to do this really well and really quick, because I don't know when they're going to come back and ask for it. Whereas like, I found that we've brought on like a couple people who didn't have military experience, and I'm just like, where's the fire? Like, where's the sense of, work with, but I guess it's an army, it's a military thing.
So you read a lot of books. Is that something that you feel like gave you a good background in areas that you weren't necessarily formally educated in?
Yes. A couple books in particular. So Fixing Myself First and Making Me Be a Better Leader. I read Miracle Morning Millionaires. It's like my favorite book of all time. And every time I feel like I'm starting to stress or get off track, it's because I'm not doing my Miracle Mornings. Do you know that book?
Is it the Hal Elrod book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Have you read The Miracle Equation?
No. Should
I would recommend it. Yeah. If you like Miracle Morning, it's his follow-up book.
But yeah, that one. And then another great one that I love is Traction. And that one is all about like running a business and making sure, you know, people are on the right seat on the bus and you guys are all like rowing in the right direction and everyone's like bought in. And it's a great book. I love it. So reading is really important.
Yeah. And it seems like you have a thriving business and then you have these like really strong personal practices as well, like doing your Miracle Morning. You wake up early, as I understand it, to do this, and and you do CrossFit all the time. So it seems like you have discipline in your life too, you know, not just in your business. It seems like you have a routine to things, you know, you wake up early and you get to the gym and you do all these great things probably before the sun even comes up, right?
True. Yeah. So my, like literally before 8, I've had like a full day. I wake up at 4 every day during the week. And on the weekends, I sleep until my body wakes me up. It's usually like 5:15.
You're telling people that you sleep in until 5:15 and they're probably listening like, she's a superhero. I don't know how you do that.
I don't know.
Great.
I also fall asleep by like 8:39. So, but yeah, so I wake up at 4 and then I do like Miracle Morning things. So I will silence, affirmations, visualizations, some reading and scribing. And then at 5:30, and that's part of Miracle Morning, by the way. Those are like the acronym within it. I don't say scribing on the regular amount of like weirdo. Okay.
It's the SAVERS acronym. He was trying to make it fit and he used the word say or scribe instead of write because it fit into the acronym.
Exactly. But then the E is at 5:30. So all the other letters are up until 5:30. And at 5:30, I go to the gym from 5:30 to 6:30, that class.
For exercise.
Exercise. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes. I really, really love CrossFit. I've only been doing it a little over a year now, but I did it pretty competitively there for a while. And I'm still competing, but I've recently had like a shift in my mindset because I was doing like 2-a-days and like being way too, like I cared way too much. That's something that I do. I go balls to the wall. But then I just had this realization like, Shelby, you're not going to the CrossFit Games. Like, let's chill a little bit. So now I'm doing just classes from 5:30 to 6:30, and I love it. And then I'll come back and shower, breakfast, and then I'll just like jump into whatever's going on. So the reason why I think it's really important to split that is because if I didn't have that time from 4 until when I left for CrossFit, that's the time where for myself, for personal development, for making sure that my 20% is properly aligned. It like helps me do the air game and not the ground game. Because when I come back from the gym and shower, it's all about ground game. It's like, okay, what's on my list today? Who do I need to call? Who do I need to talk to? And as soon as, if you wake up and you jump straight into the ground game, you are missing this huge piece that can accelerate your life, your business, like everything. Like that first part is so important. So after the shower, after eating, jump into business. And then depending on the day, we'll have like a team sync, we have training exercises, we have tons of stuff. And then the day is done.
So you do get more done before 8 a.m. than the average person does most days, right? It sounds like you're getting set up for success by doing that. And you're starting your day in a proactive sense. You're working on yourself, doing personal development. Instead of a lot of people wake up and then they look at Instagram and then they react to emails and they get into the grind of the day-to-day or the to-do list before they even have a chance to get their head in the space of how they want to orient themselves, what the best use of their time would be, you know, what their priorities are. So your Miracle Morning, it sounds like it's working for you.
Thank you. You're totally right though. It's all about, and I'll talk to my guys about this too, about like, are you being proactive in your life or are you reacting to everything? Because that is the difference. Like if you're able to be proactive and not just react all the time, like you are head and shoulders above.
So many people default to other people's inputs in their life to determine what they're going to do next. They don't take the time to think, you know, if you do like a little bit of journaling in the morning, I journal as part of my morning routine as well. They don't even take the time to think, okay, well, what do I want my day to accomplish for me? Yes. Right? They say, I'm going to go to work and do whatever my boss tells me to do, I guess, or whatever the new 20 emails in my inbox require from me, without thinking, well, maybe I could be moving the needle forward in a really specific area by giving myself time to think about what my larger goals are, what those smaller priorities for today should be. You really give yourself a path forward that's going to help you accomplish more, like you have, in a year or 2 years than a lot of people do in like 10.
You get it. I love it.
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about your morning routine, because I saw like on Instagram you were, I think you had mentioned maybe Miracle Morning or something like that. And I knew that you did CrossFit and everything. And I have a morning routine that I've been following religiously for probably like, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years now.
What do you
And
think? I want to know.
what my morning routine is?
Yeah.
It's not based on Savers from the Miracle Morning, but it's really similar. So it's like, I make sure that I wake up, I drink lots of water, I have a cup of tea, I meditate for 10 to 20 minutes, I journal, and my journal varies widely. Like I could journal for 10 minutes, I could journal for like 45 minutes. It really depends on what I'm trying to figure out. Sometimes my evening routine, I also have an evening routine, but my evening routine's a really important part for me to figure out what my morning's going to look like, because Benjamin Franklin said, never go to bed without a request to your subconscious. And so when I'm trying to solve a problem or move forward in something that I feel like I've been stuck in, I try to think about it before bed when I'm doing my evening journaling, which is much shorter than my morning journaling. And then when I wake up, I have all this inspiration and creativity. And I mean, the way that your brainwaves are when you wake up, you are more creative. So I'll sometimes write for like 40 minutes on a topic that I've been trying to figure out a solution to a problem or something like that. I don't go to CrossFit for an hour in the morning. I do some yoga, I do some push-ups, and I do a plank for 1 minute to 2 minutes. If I'm doing Planksmas during Christmas, I'll do like a 3-minute plank, but that's it. I'm not lifting like 150 pounds or rowing or anything like that. But that's my morning routine. Yeah, I just try to get my personal development in first thing. I set 3 priorities for every day, and they don't necessarily have to be about stuff that I'm going to do for me. It's usually including things like work, stuff that I have to do for my job, because I work at a W-2 right now, and stuff that I want to do for my business, which I do on the side, and then usually something I want, for me or for my relationships. But trying to be intentional every day has, accelerated my progress throughout the last, say, year and a half or 2 years. Has been so much faster than what I've done in the last 10 years, because I stopped being reactive and I started being proactive.
I love it. Yeah.
I love morning routines and evening. I love talking to people about their routines. That's why I wanted to get into it, because it's so powerful, and you see, when you see someone who gets results the way that you do, Shelby, that they have to have some, like, people think it's a secret, right? But they have to have some framework that is putting them in the powerful position to like move through their day in a really successful way. And that's typically a morning routine. So it sounds like yours is doing great things for you. Do you do anything specifically for like an evening routine?
Not really. So when I am at my best self, I'll do a variation of an evening routine. And really what it just consists of is like prepping everything possible for the next day. I like to do that and just like maybe listening to an audiobook or something like while I'm doing it, like meal prepping and like laying out your clothes, and just I want everything to be like as efficient as possible in life. So stuff like that. And then also, like you said, think about the next morning, and then that helps you get up too, because you're like excited. You wake up and you're like, yes, this is the reason why I'm getting up. Like it's already in your brain. Whereas if you don't do that before you go to bed, your alarm clock goes off and you're like, oh, it's 4. Like, why would I get up right now? You know what I mean? You have to have that like reason.
Yeah, for sure. No, part of my evening routine is literally visualizing waking up and turning my alarm off and choosing not to go back to sleep. That's part of it. And I'm not always successful, but it helps. If I have a really great, I set my 3 priorities the night before, and then I reiterate them and evaluate them in the morning if they have to be changed. But if I have those 3 priorities and I know what I'm waking up for, and what I'm going to do, it's a lot easier for me to say, okay, and like this isn't a crazy visualization. I like sit down on my bed after I set my alarm and say, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to leave the bedroom. That's it. But I'm going to work towards my goals. And that, just making that commitment to myself is something that, the evening routine is like the small part that I do at the end of the day. That's a big part of my morning routine success. Let's transition talking about lifestyle. And do you have an idea of what your ideal lifestyle looks like right now?
I've thought about this recently because I will go through times where my miracle morning will fall off and then I start questioning, like, why am I doing all of this? Like, what's going on? So recently happened and thought about, I don't think that I could ever just chill, because a lot of people are like, oh, like I want to just, retire. And like, that's not possible. I don't think I would go crazy. So
Me
I
too.
think when I hit where I want to be, I'm going to, like, financially, I'm going to travel. I have a whole list of places that I want to see. So I'm going to take a time to go see family that I haven't seen in a while, spend some time with my parents, my brother, and then I'm going to go off into the world for as long as I want, which probably, knowing myself, is like 6 months. And then after that, I want to come back, and I think my next venture is consulting. So I actually just started my first consulting gig, which I'm like super stoked about, because it's going to force me to build the systems. Cause like I said, like as you go through it, like I build as I go. But consulting in regards to real estate, building a business, like my transactional part that we talked about, that's my first client, is like I'm helping him do it, which is really exciting. But then myself, Michael Glaspie, and Daniel Kidd, they're literally my favorite people ever. And so the three of us together could make a really powerful consulting team for anyone who wants to get into investing as a more serious business, because I'm all about systems, efficiencies, like building what you need to do in that regard. Whereas Mike is really good at the back end stuff. So like LLCs creation, tax, all of that stuff. And then Dan is our numbers nerd. So he's like all about like, what ROI they need for property, all of these, like, well, if you do this, and strategy for the numbers. So the three of us together could like be really good, I think.
Yeah. And so you'd be consulting with people who want to start their own real estate empire.
Yes,
in the
exactly.
same way that you have. Awesome. It sounds like you're looking to keep working, but you want to be working in a way that uses your skills well, right? And maybe you have more freedom, more time freedom. You can choose when you work, take the time off to travel, right?
And not take any more clients than I don't want to, and only work with people who really want it. So right now in my business, in real estate in general, you're kind of at the mercy of your clients, like what house they want to see, what they want to do. When they call, you got to pick up, like all these things, which is fine for now. But that's the part that I want to leave behind. When I am working as a consultant, I will, in theory, be able to pick only the clients who I see the fire in their eyes, the ones who, when I tell them to do something because for their benefit, that they're actually going to do it. Like being able to have that choice and not taking on a lot. Like I'll probably just work with one person and give it my all and then move on to the next afterwards. Not like, dude, like 20 clients at once in real estate industry is like, that's the part that I want to leave. I don't see myself being in transactional real estate for years. Like it's not the long-term thing. I will leave that part behind. I will never leave behind the purchasing of investment properties, because that passive income is what is going to fuel the fact that I only have to work with one consulting client, or the fact that I want to go, to Africa or across Europe or like wherever. So those are the transactional one eventually I will move away from.
Do you know how far out you are from your goal number of financial independence? Do you have a projection for when you would be getting to that cash flow?
My goal is the 1st of January of 2021. So soon. And I've got a long way to go, but our strategy has recently changed. And I think that it's going to make this huge difference, because right now when you're chipping away at cash flow, it's hard for, you get like $100 or $200 a door, and that takes a while to add up. Very doable, but the new strategy is Airbnb.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. So right now, one of my single family properties just went live, and it actually just got booked even before it technically went live through the end of this month anywhere. And then me, Mike, and Dan bought a duplex where we're Airbnb-ing both of them. And then because they told us we can't get any more loans, we were doing Airbnb arbitrage on 2 studio apartments downtown. So that means that we have signed a long-term lease with a landlord for a property and told him, hey, we're going to do short-term rentals out of this property. We filled it with furniture, and they're about to go live too. And they are lit, man. The cool thing about it, I just want to say, is that there's furniture stores that will give you 12 months, 0% interest financing. So in theory, we're completely furnishing the properties. Well, not in theory, we are completely furnishing the properties and getting these Airbnbs going, which make generally three times as much as long-term rental. And granted, all of our cash flow is going to be turning back in to pay for that furniture, but like with hardly anything out of pocket is we're able to do this. So very exciting.
Yeah, that is a really like interesting kind of pivot, right, from where you are now. And do you find that is going to be the arm that you're expanding the most?
Yeah, the fact that we can't get loans, the fact that we can have the furniture financed, and the fact that it makes three times as much as a long-term, like it's just,
it's a no-brainer.
Oh, and there's a property manager for that, so more leverage, because there's no way I'm managing those things.
Yeah.
So.
Did you do any amount of property management for your first property when you were like the single family residence that you were occupying and then you rented it out? Did you get that property manager right away so that you weren't in the day-to-day?
Well, I rented it to a friend first, which is what they tell you absolutely not to
do. How'd that go?
It went really well.
Okay,
it was fine. It was perfect. But when he moved out, I picked up a property manager then because it was in Washington and I lived in North Carolina. Because of the distance, I didn't want to manage it myself. But my properties in North Carolina, I did manage myself up until I hit past 16. And then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But that system is completely built. If you ever want a system on how to manage your own rental properties, I got checklists. I got all this. I could send you everything. So
yeah, sounds like you should make an online course about that or something.
Probably.
I don't know if that's something you've ever considered.
I've considered so many things, but it all goes back to what do I want most? And what I want most is investing in more properties. So I have to build active income, which is being an agent. That you can make a shit ton of money as an agent to fuel in there. So I'm like tunnel vision. There's so many things that I could do that'd be awesome, but like gotta stay focused.
And on the financial side, I am curious, is the majority of your portfolio real estate based, or do you also have a portion that's invested in any sort of equities like stocks?
I did have stocks and mutual funds and all that stuff. And I pulled all of it out and put it all into real estate. So I'm 100%. And what people say all the time, like, you need to diversify. I'm like, nope, I'm 100% real estate. The other thing too, like I feel people listening to this might think that that's risky, but so I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which was the second least affected city in the entire nation in 2008. So the cool thing is there's not this bubble of appreciation. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but like things barely appreciate. So like if I look back 10 years ago, property is worth maybe slightly more, but I'm not taking this huge risk and throwing all my money into real estate that will just crash at the next crash. It's very stable. And then it's because of all of the military, people are given a housing allowance. So I know exactly how much they make on rent. And that is something that during a crash does not adjust as like the value of the home is normally what takes a hit, not the rental market. So, I mean, it's again, calculated risk, everything that it's all calculated. I guess if anyone wants to buy, sell, or invest, actually nationwide. So I have a lot of network of people, agents in other cities who I trust, have personally vetted. So if you want anyone out there who wants to buy, sell, or invest anywhere nationwide, just holler at your girl. That's all.
I have a couple of like rapid fire questions. So the first question is, what does freedom mean to you?
Owning my time entirely.
And what would you do if you could retire right now?
Travel. But I would spend time with family because that's something that I do tend to neglect is relationships first because I'm tunnel vision hardcore. So I need to go and show some love to the people that I love.
I relate to that really hard. Now, what would you do if you could never retire?
I freaking love what I'm doing. I really do. And I love the idea of moving into consulting. Like this whole world is just so awesome because there's so much freedom, but a different use of the word. But like no one in real estate there's no rules. I just literally make it up every day and it's awesome.
And last question, if you could go back in time, what piece of financial or lifestyle advice would you give yourself in your early 20s?
Start sooner. Like take action now, because a year from now, you're going to look back and wish you would have started then. So just do it.
Just do it. It sounds like you just did it. You have such an inspiring story, and I'm so happy to have had you on the podcast. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. It's super fun.
And where can people find you to learn more about your story?
On Facebook, Instagram, at Real Estate with Shelby Osborne is mine, but then there's also Pillars Realty Group. And then I'm on Bigger Pockets. If real estate investors out there, you know what that is. And LinkedIn, all of those.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I want this to be more than just a podcast for listening to, so I'm making it a do-cast, where you're getting information from the podcast that you can take action on to create real outcomes in your life. I call these power moves. If you implement even one of these tactics into your life, you're taking a powerful step towards finding your freedom. What are some power moves we learned from this conversation? Here are 5. Power move number 1, use leverage. As Shelby discussed, you can leverage your time, you can leverage other people, and you can leverage your money. This is easily illustrated by the cash flow quadrant that Shelby described from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Business of the 21st Century. In the quadrant, which you can find an image of in the show notes at 20free.co/episode 4, you are in one of 4 places. The first is employee, where you have a job and you trade your time for money. The second is self-employed, where you own a job, but you still trade time for money. Neither of these quadrants uses leverage. The third quadrant is business owner, where people work for you. In this paradigm, other people's time creates money for you. The fourth quadrant is investor, where your money works for you. This is actually the definition of passive income. In the third and fourth quadrants, income is not dependent on your time, action, or even presence. Ultimately, this is how you create freedom. So figure out what quadrant you're in right now and how you can leverage time, people, and money to get to the investor quadrant. Power move number 2, create systems and checklists. Shelby is really big on systems because once you do something well and document it, you never make the same mistake twice. This makes it easier to train people, to standardize quality throughout a business, and to not have to relearn how to do something every time you need to complete that task. Think about those things you do over and over again and create a system for them. This way, you can automate, delegate, or outsource that task and save yourself time. That's smart leverage. Power move number 3, fail forward. Were you surprised to hear that the Keller Williams Rookie of the Year and someone who has procured over 40 units in 2 years didn't know exactly what she was doing when she started her business? It turns out you don't need to have an enormous business plan or a business degree to start a business. Just start. Fail forward and you will still be making forward progress, more than the other person who waits for years and years researching something but never starting. What is something that you can do today to get started on finding your freedom? Even if you don't have the full plan in place, take some steps now and fail forward. Power move number 4, use the 80-20 principle. The 80-20 principle states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Therefore, you need to focus all of your energy on that 20% that will get you the results. Are you doing something in your life or business that isn't really getting you anywhere? It's not moving you towards your goals or earning you any money? The time, energy, and focus that you are putting into that thing could really create results if diverted towards a 20% activity. So knock those 80% items off your to-do list forever. Or, if you can't find a way to eliminate them, delegate those tasks to others. Write your 80-20 list today and decide on 3 things in the 80% you're going to stop doing and 3 things in the 20% that you're going to double down on. Power move number 5. Spend time on your priorities before spending time on others. Shelby wakes up at 4 a.m. and gets more done before work than most people get done all day. She reserves that time in the morning for personal development and for refocusing on her true priorities. This helps her figure out what 20% of strategic activities she should be working on. I have a similar morning routine in my life. It helps me be proactive rather than reactive and helps make sure that what I'm working on is what is really moving the needle forward. Here's my suggestion for you. Create a morning routine that focuses on things that are important to you. It doesn't have to be hours and hours long. Start simple. A really helpful framework comes from the book The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I'll include a link in the show notes at 20free.co/episode 4. That is the 5th and final power move from this conversation with real estate entrepreneur Shelby Osborne. To check out the show notes for this episode, which includes links to resources mentioned in today's interview and where you can learn more about Shelby, go to 20free.co/episode 4. That's the word 20, FREE.co/episode 4. Do you need help figuring out what's next in your path to finding your freedom? Let's work together. As a money coach and lifestyle design expert, I am offering an exclusive small group coaching program this spring. As your coach, I will help you gain clarity about what freedom looks like for you, develop a strategy to get there, and overcome your money roadblocks on the path to financial and lifestyle freedom. People work with me because they want to start living their ideal life, but they don't have a clear path to get there. And they don't want to spend years or even decades using trial and error and disjointed advice from the internet to figure out how to make it happen. I offer both the proven tools that will clarify your vision and path, as well as intense accountability to make sure that you take the action needed to change your life. So if you want to take the concepts you are learning on this podcast and apply them to your life with my help, apply for the group coaching program now. Applications for limited available spots in the spring 2020 program are now open. Visit 20free.co/group coaching to apply today and schedule your free 10-minute call with me. I can't wait to help you transform your life and find your freedom. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you're subscribed to the Find Your Freedom podcast on whatever app you're using to listen to this episode. Do me a favor and also leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Go to 20free.co/iTunes to be redirected to the page on Apple Podcasts where you can leave your rating and review. I really appreciate it. If you think this episode would help someone you know, please share it with a friend. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast. My name is Becky. You can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter at 20freeco and sign up for free resources and email updates at www.20free.co. That's the word 20, FREE.co. I'll talk to you next week on another episode of the Find Your Freedom podcast.